of pre-industrial levels is still out of reach. The world is on track to warm by 2.7 degrees based on current promises. Negotiators are hoping to impose new requirements that could force countries to hike their pledges in the future.
How can you all come to Glasgow, say you're working to keep 1.5 degrees in sight and not have an outcome that is ambitious and equitable?
The people united will never be defeated.
A latest draft also waters down tough talk on the fossil fuel industry. But one of the summit's biggest flashpoints, even after 2 weeks of talks, is money. There's been anger going into the talks after richer nations failed to make good on a promise to deliver $100 billion a year for poorer, climate-vulnerable nations. But the real cost for allowing the Earth to heat up could be much higher than previously estimated. The UN has suggested it will require trillions to cope with the effects of climate change on droughts, flooding, and heat waves.
Indonesian President Joko Widodo has inaugurated a street circuit in Lombok as he pushes to revive the tourism industry. The Mandalika International Circuit will host the upcoming World Superbike Championship next week, as well as the MotoGP next year. CNA's Chandi Vedvani spoke to Mr. Widodo, a bike enthusiast himself, in an exclusive interview at the launch.
Ya, ini Mandalika ini adalah destinasi baru yang ingin kita angkat sehingga semua mengenal, dunia mengenal Mandalika. Oleh sebab itu dibangun sirkuit Mandalika yang sebentar lagi kita akan mengadakan World Superbike dan nanti di bulan Maret tahun 2022 kita akan mengadakan MotoGP. Dan kita harapkan dari sana ini akan memulai menstimulasi turis untuk datang ke Indonesia. Yang kita harapkan itu, dan kita harapkan juga menjadi titik pertumbuhan ekonomi baru di Pulau Lombok.
After 18 months, COVID-19 transmissions have slowed in the country. But Bapak, with the relaxation of community restrictions and increased people movement towards the end of your holidays, are you worried about a third wave?
Ya, apapun kita masih khawatir. Karena para pakar, para epidemiolog juga menyampaikan bahwa masih ada kemungkinan gelombang ketiga.
Bapak, you are expected to meet with Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong in the Leaders' Retreat this year, possibly in Bintan Island. Indonesia and Malaysia recently agreed to gradually reopen borders with a travel corridor agreement. Is a discussion about this on the cards for Singapore?
Iya, kita kan memang setiap tahun selalu ada pertemuan, tetapi karena pandemi ini mengagak mundur. Tetapi ini, insya Allah akhir tahun ini akan ada pertemuan, kemungkinan besar di Bintan, dan kita juga akan berbicara mengenai travel corridor arrangement yang kita harapkan nanti mungkin dibuka tidak langsung semua Indonesia, mungkin Bintan dengan Singapura atau Bali dengan Singapura, Jakarta dengan Singapura misalnya. Tapi sekali lagi, semuanya dengan tahapan-tahapan. Dan terus melanjutkan yang berkaitan dengan ekonomi dan perdagangan, investasi, saya kira karena investasi terutama yang dari Singapura juga banyak, kita harapkan itu akan terus bisa ditingkatkan. Yeah.
Still to come, a closer look at what it takes to keep Singapore's most important heritage buildings in good shape.
Every day, the financial world goes through dramatic rise and falls. We'll track the biggest market movers and show you where the opportunities lie. Get the experts' take on the performance of key indices. Plus all the analysis to help you understand forces driving global economies. The daily business news you need, only on CNA. This segment is brought to you by Xeon Corporation.
Work, play and live in the new downtown with exceptional homes. A classy, vibrant district awaits those who love dining, entertainment and culture. Be enamored with a selection of upscale residences in the new downtown. Register your interest at cna.asia/exceptional homes. Presented by CNA Luxury and Property Guru. And supported by the following partners.
Enjoy a special journey through time in Gangnam. Join Justin and a historical commentator as they explore classical attractions and learn how life was like in ancient Korea and find out why some traditions and cultures are still in fashion. Gangnam Insiders Picks, Sunday on CNA. This program is brought to you by the Gangnam-gu office.
Turning trash into a message.
This time to the artists can change the mindset of the peoples.
Planting to absorb carbon. Building a more climate resilient community.
Actually, the baseline of what we're doing is to support the fishermen and the wider community.
Asia's Climate Warriors. Saturday on CNA.
No second chance. There is no second Earth. We should drastically reduce them. We should greatly increase them. Future changes when done without hesitation. This is our last chance. 2050. Carbon neutrality. Coming soon.
Welcome back. Some $2.2 million was awarded to 20 national monuments in Singapore since last year. The funds will help keep the most important heritage buildings in good shape. Alif Hamshah reports.
The Hajjah Fatimah Mosque, nestled in the Kampung Glam area, dates back to the 1840s. Along with an iconic tower, it boasts a blend of cross-cultural architectural designs. But upkeeping its facades is no easy task. It helps that the mosque is one of 13 national monuments that will receive funding for maintenance or restoration works this year under the National Monuments Fund. The Sultan Mosque and the Tian Hock Keng Temple are also among the beneficiaries.
By function, they still continue as either religious sites or sites that are relevant for the community. So keeping them in good shape is essential for public safety. But on the other hand, we also want to ensure that monuments that are preserved continue to be well maintained. And this is one way to stem full-blown restoration projects, which are very costly.
Currently, over 30 structures are eligible for grants under the co-funding scheme. They must be owned and managed by a non-profit or religious organization and open to the public. Meanwhile, this exhibition at the National Museum is celebrating Singapore's built heritage over the last 5 decades. It spans 6 sections that showcases all 73 of Singapore's national monuments. Landmarks are brought to life with these artworks, digital experiences, and even miniature 3D printed models.
Whenever we see a monument, it's always this, we are the small figure looking at this giant building right in front of us. So with all these miniature models, I guess it provides the guest who comes here a different perspective, like bird's eye, or sometimes you can just really squat down and look from the bottom. So with all this kind of experience, it kind of brings a very different dimension towards monument.
The exhibition will run until early January next year.
For more insights on the importance of protecting these historically significant sites, we're joined by NUS Professor Ho Pui Ping. He's also the UNESCO Chair for Architectural Heritage Conservation and Management in Asia. Prof, thanks very much for joining us. First, some big picture. What are some of the considerations before authorities decide what to gazette as national monuments?
Thank you, John. I think the most important consideration would be the values of this monument. And to us, as a conservation professional, we go by the value-based system to understand the values of the buildings in order for us to decide whether we should conserve it. And national monuments is at the highest level of this value-based system. And so in the hierarchy of monuments or heritage, the monuments that we preserve as national monuments really would be the highest and the most direct evidence of our historical journey, of our identity, of our culture.
Now, Professor, many of our national monuments were built in the 19th and 20th centuries. Are there structures that have yet to be gazetted, but perhaps deserve to be?
Yeah, Steve, I think that there are many structures that we should look at in order to understand their values as well as their contribution to our identity. Some of these are including, for example, the Padang, which is really a big space that we really have to know. I mean, we are very much a part of it as we grew up in our national service as well as today. And therefore, it has a very, very important significance to the life of the people. There are also other heritage, such as those underground. For example, the waterworks. The Bukit Timah waterworks are actually fabulous inside in terms of its structure and so on. But it's also a very important part of our identity and serve our needs. And there are also maybe more everyday facilities or buildings such as the markets or the other monuments that will help us understand our everyday life. But finally, I think we would really want to see the preservation of a larger area or neighborhood, such as Tiong Bahru, for example, looking not just as a singular building, but a group of buildings or a district.
Yeah, so that's the thing about conserving areas or buildings, right? Everybody seems to have an opinion. And I think a lot of people have been talking about getting the public involved in consultations over what should be gazetted as well. What's your take on that suggestion?
I think to us, conservation is not about just the quality of the buildings. Conservation is about how we see those buildings. And it is how we really put a value on the building so that we want that value to be transmitted to our next generation. And so the society ought to be at the center of the conservation movement. We should be able to give the monuments or the heritage buildings that we preserve a life so that we can continue. And the next generation can decide whether those buildings are their monuments. And so our role and our responsibility today is to give it the value that we think is appropriate, and the next generation can keep it up or maybe not regarding them as heritage or monuments.
Land scarcity is often something that gets brought up in Singapore, but how do you balance then the need for preservation and the need for development as well?
It is a very difficult balance, I think. And I think in Singapore, we have already preserved quite a large amount of heritage as well as historic neighborhood, much more than many places. If we take Hong Kong, for example, we have already preserved quite a lot of buildings, more than 7,000 buildings. But for monuments, I think they are very, very special. We are only preserving 73 national monuments. I think we can go on to preserve a bit more because they reflect who we are. And those monuments without preservation would go perhaps into demolitions or may not survive at all. And I think for me, some of these monuments really they don't occupy a lot of land. I mean, maybe Tiong Bahru will be a larger piece of land, but they don't really occupy a lot of land. And so I think our priority is to continue this historical journey and consider this some of these buildings to be monuments.
Professor, thank you for joining us, and thank you as well for the work that you do. Professor Ho Pui Peng from NUS. And that brings a close to Singapore Tonight this evening. Don't forget, headlines anytime at CNA.Asia.
Plus, we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. Have a great weekend.
This Saturday, why the Singapore property market continues to defy gravity from pandemic to endemic.
Most of the people are not selling first, they want to buy first.
And what lies ahead for the way we work and play.
There is a demand to come back to the office.
Is what tenant mix would actually create the best experience for your consumers.
Money Mind, Saturday at 10:30 p.m.
1 kilometer radius? Check.
They want the kid in the best primary school, they relocate, and up prices.
Alumni? Check.
The most obvious privilege would be legacy benefits.
And when all else fails?
I wrote to many people in MOE.
Talking Point finds out in a special survey. How far will parents go to get their child into their preferred primary school? Sunday on CNA.
What does this look like? A huge hard drive? Nope. It's actually one of many lithium-ion cells that powers cars like this.
This is ridiculously fast!
Radiance of the sun. Strength of the ocean. Hardness of the diamond. Real touch. Only natural diamonds with grading certificate. Perfect match. 2. Mason Jewelry.
Headline news this hour, COP26 negotiators water down calls to end the use of coal and phase out subsidies for fossil fuels. Questions of finance also loom over the last-ditch negotiations in Glasgow. Nearly 200 nations are still trying to reach an agreement as the global climate talks enter their final hours. A helmsman and the people's leader, Xi Jinping, cements his power in China as he prepares for a virtual summit with Joe Biden on Monday. Beijing has confirmed both sides are in close contact, but hasn't revealed details. Europe has become the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic again. It accounts for more than half of the average 7-day infections globally, according to one tally. The EU says 10 countries in the bloc face a COVID situation of high concern. They include the Netherlands, which is set to declare Western Europe's first partial lockdown of the winter. Activists slam Myanmar for sentencing a U.S. journalist to 11 years in prison. Danny Fenster has been found guilty of incitement against the military. Washington has called for him to be released. The 37-year-old was the managing editor of online magazine Frontier Myanmar. And that is the latest from the CNA newsroom.
Every day, the financial world goes through dramatic rise and falls. We'll track the biggest market movers and show you where the opportunities lie. Get the experts' take on the performance of key indices. Plus all the analysis to help you understand forces driving global economies. The daily business news you need. Only on CNA. This segment is brought to you by Xeon Corporation. This November, unravel the two sides of a coin as we tackle the complexities of life. For individuals in battling the loneliness of the pandemic, will they emerge stronger from their altered lives? Do young offenders deserve a second chance? Follow the selfless duties of the officers inside the probation service.